All right, up next, it's the story that dominated the Marvel fandom last week when Beau DeMayo claimed his credit will be removed from Season 2 because he shared fan art for Gay Pride in June. DeMayo cited this as, quote, the latest in a troubling pattern I suffered through while working on X-Men 97 and Blade. Marvel quickly released a statement responding to DeMayo's claim that it was his behavior, called egregious in the statement, which was the cause of his loss of credit as well as his termination. Sources following these statements claimed that an agreement had been reached regarding social media around X-Men 97, and DeMayo had breached that contract. Other sources claim DeMayo's termination was due to sexual misconduct, though no internal reviews have surfaced. We're here to discuss the facts as we know them, which is very little, really, what we know. And who wants to go first?
Yeah, this is a tricky one. You kind of have to separate things with a story like this, especially this early, where we're really at the beginning of this. We're probably at the beginning of a story that will last over some lawsuits and some more tabloid headlines and some more information. And where we are right now, you kind of have to bucket the information into what did Beau DeMayo say happened, what did Disney say happened, and then what do scoopers / insiders / people who aren't official say that they're hearing what happened. And understanding that within those three things, the first two are the only ones that we know for sure that we can confirm, right? Because we've heard it from someone. So we do know, like you said, Beau DeMayo, he says that he was let go from Disney, and we know he was let go in March. But we're focusing more on the writing credit for season 2. And his statement, like you said, is that he posted an image that had to do with gay pride, and that was why, in his mind, he was let go. And so Disney responded and said,
a quick aside. That's not what the post said. We thought that too. We talked about this on MCU Cast, and we talked about it like that for 20 minutes, and the post just says, this image is why my credits were removed. That image is from June of this year, so he couldn't have been fired for it. So like a lot of people online are talking about him being fired for that image. That's not true. He never even claimed that.
Right,
He's saying his credits were taken because of the image, which, but we still, he's not even saying why he was fired. He's just saying it's like a part of this whole
troubling narrative
or whatever he says. We have the words written here.
Troubling pattern.
Yeah, troubling pattern.
Well, and he was, it should be known too that like before June, like he was playing pretty nice. I mean, he was tweeting about X-Men 97, only positive things. He was not publicly lashing out against Disney. Like there was seemingly no bad blood publicly, at least, between these two parties. But then, the whole thing happened with the removal of the writing credits. I think the Emmys had a big issue. There was an issue there, too, because he was not invited to the Emmys, and he made that known that was an issue that he had, was that he was not invited to the Emmys. Disney coming out and saying that it was egregious behavior, it's clear what their sort of stance is, that they haven't conducted an internal investigation. They let him go immediately. They don't want him to be associated with a show that's still ongoing, so they don't want him to be at the Emmys associated with a show that's still happening if they don't believe that he reflects what they want from their company. So there's then the other side of it, which is you have the insiders and you have the people who are hearing things and you have the rumors and the leaks and all those things. And with those, I mean, I think it's best that, we keep them general. It's like sexual misconduct seems to be the thing across the board. But again, it's all from people who aren't official. And it's kind of one of those things, like you want to let people tell their own stories if they want to tell their own stories. You don't want to get in and start breaking stuff if people aren't ready to talk about it. And you don't want to start questioning people who aren't ready to talk about it and everything like that. So ultimately, like, there's NDAs on NDAs here that both sides are saying that they violated. Disney's saying you violated it because you posted about X-Men 97. He's saying the NDA was illegal in the first place and I can't be held to it. And that's where, if this goes to court, that's what it's going to be over. It's going to be over this idea of the non-disclosure agreements that were signed. And man, like, I don't know. I think I don't know what kind of case exists here for Beau DeMaio. Like, I don't really, at least from the outside, it kind of seems like he might be sort of stepping in it a little bit. Like, I don't know. It just seems like from the outside, it's like, hey, like he got let go from the show for something that Disney, conducted an internal investigation, let him go immediately. And then all of a sudden it's like, you're going to turn around and say, well, actually, I have an issue with this writing credit thing, and you're going to bring that up, and then now all of a sudden it's going to open the Pandora's box type thing. It's going to open the conversation and the investigation and all this type of stuff. Like, it seemed like there was an agreement there, like, we won't tell anyone why we fired you, and in return, you won't associate yourself with the show, and we'll play nice. But that's kind of gone now, and it's like, now we're asking questions like, well, why were you fired? And why was there an internal investigation? What does the internal investigation say? Look, we're asking questions we weren't asking before, really. And it's just like, now it's snowballing, and it's become this bigger narrative where, you've got Jeff Snyder out there saying, like, I'm talking to all these people, and they're telling me he was sending photos to people unprompted that were, of him nude and all this stuff. And it's just like, then you've got, you're going up to writers on the show, asking them about it. And it's just like, it's sullying the show and the people who worked on it and all. And it's opened up this, like, really complicated conversation around this whole thing where, again, we're at the beginning of it. There's still a lot more probably to come out, and potentially lawsuits, and right now it's just, we're on this like messy sort of beginning of the whole thing that and we'll probably be hearing about it for off and on for a long time, I would imagine, especially if it ends up going to court.
Yeah, the initial splash was DeMaio's post, and if you know how companies the size of Disney work, you kind of immediately go, that seems not quite like something that they would do. Not for that reason. Especially given the nature of X-Men 97 and the X-Men characters themselves. And knowing how instrumental DeMaio's writing was for the show. So that being cited as, the credit strip reason, it just didn't make sense, right? And so then you wait and more stuff comes out, and it's like, oh, there's a lot more going on here than we will probably ever know, and that's okay with me, quite frankly. I wonder, this is just like a personal thing, did he feel bolstered by support from fans who really enjoyed the show, and rightfully so, because it was so well done, and feel like maybe he had a leg to stand on? Perhaps. Who knows? We don't know what prompted this, Jay, you called it earlier, extremely litigious move. So we'll see. It's a shame all around for all of the parties, for everything that's going on. It will continue.
Yeah, Haley, I think you hit the nail right on the head in terms of Beau DeMaio being bolstered by the reception to that first season of X-Men 97. And this may be a surprise to the listeners, but in my personal life, I don't like drama. So on the surface, I don't want to touch this thing with a 39.5-foot pole, but treading lightly because we don't have all the full details. All that being said, looking at the timeline of events and people's reactions and who chooses to say what first, I, for one, think I can pretty confidently say that, 9 times out of 10, I would side with, the individual versus the big corporation. But I think in this example, I do think this is a case of Beau getting a little big for his britches. Jay, to your point, initially he was more than happy to keep quiet. Like, I remember a couple months back, I was like, I want to know what Beau DeMaio did, and now it's just like, I kind of wish I didn't.
Don't.
Yeah, like everyone was happy. Disney was happy. Beau was happy to just keep quiet, enjoy the success of this show, chime in here and there where you can. But at some point, his name became ubiquitous with X-Men 97 and the success of that franchise. So even as we started to talk about season 2 and season 3 and bringing in Matthew Chauncey and new writers to change his thing, people started to bristle against that, myself included. And I think he just took that hype and energy and kind of rode with it and got a little full of himself. And, he kind of called Disney's bluff, and they said, all right, you want to fight? Disney doesn't play. We'll put this out there. We'll let people know, not the exact details of what you did, but what you did. And, I do think back even, when we first started talking about his firing, a lot of people have come out from his work on The Witcher and cited problematic behavior there as well. So it sounds like it's just, I believe Bo when he says that he needs to take a break from, social media and focus on his mental health. I probably, this form of self-sabotage does feel like someone that's like probably, hey, you need to talk to someone, you need to vent this somewhere else other than the online space where you're going to incur all this wrath. So, if I was a writer and I wrote a headline for this thing, give me crap if you want, but I probably would have titled it Cinco de Mayo, Sinko, because that's what it feels like. It feels like he's just like, burning all the bridges that he has. And like, had he stayed quiet and just let things like, smooth over doesn't seem like the right word, but if things had just run their course, he probably could have lined himself up with a pretty nice job and had a lot of attention, a lot of fan favor going for him. But I think when, push comes to shove and everything comes to light, he's going to be on the losing side of this. And I think that's unfortunate. I hope it just doesn't impact the reception to X-Men 97 going forward, because I do think that first season was absolutely wonderful, and I'm excited for the future of it. And I hope, even with Bo's, suspected or alleged problematic behavior here, I hope that his vision and influence can still be respected despite, this really ugly situation.
Well, and something that speaks to me too is that typically when someone in a high-profile situation like this, who's in charge of a property, gets fired for something, and especially if it's like not for a reason that deserves to be fired, the people come out and support the person. Like they come out and they defend them. I mean, think about whenever they came for James Gunn, right, during Guardians, and the whole cast of Guardians was like, we will quit, we will leave if you fire James Gunn, and they brought him back. Think about when Snyder was let go and they tried to bring in Whedon, and that entire cast of the Justice League came out and said, no, we love working with Zack Snyder, and backed him. There hasn't been a single person come out and back Bo DiMaio when he was fired in March. Like, not a single writer, not a single executive, no one has come out and said, like, you've done the wrong thing. And that it's kind of a writing on the wall thing a little bit. Like, when that happens, it just kind of speaks for itself. And I think that's something you kind of have to keep in mind in the background a little bit with this, is that maybe there were more people in that room that wanted to see him go than not.
Sure.
Despite the massively creative thing that he put on screen and the fantastic thing that he was responsible for, maybe there was a lot more going on behind the scenes that were more problematic than have been out there.
Well, you bring up Whedon, and that's like another case and example. Like, if we can separate the art from the artist, like Whedon has like a catalog of great work, but now, we can't hold him in the same esteem that we can, but we can still, appreciate that work for what it was. Some of us can. I can. I won't speak for anyone else.
Yeah, I definitely can too. I generally think you can separate the art from the artist. It just gets tricky when you start supporting an artist who's still actively doing problematic behaviors.
Absolutely.
That's in my mind. If the artist is no longer doing those practical, it has lost their power, place of power, or whatever, I don't mind as much still in consuming that art. Like, for instance, if an artist is dead and we know they did terrible things, which, like, most dead artists did terrible things because there was a whole different time involved and people with that much power did terrible things. So it's a whole thing. But I just hate this story. I hate the he said, she said it all, and I hate the, like, there's no way to know the truth. It's really hard to... Like, because I can construct narratives based on both of these people's allegations that feel completely legitimate, Like, sure, no one else came out to protect him, but, like, voice actors and animation writers have a lot less power than movie stars, Like, maybe they didn't feel they had the leverage to come out. Whereas, like, James Gunn's celebrity friends are like, I'll get another job next week. You bring James Gunn back. They have a lot more leverage. So I can see it both ways, and I hate this sort of, like, especially, I really hate the sort of just, like, implied egregious behavior. Well, stated egregious behavior, but no real allegations, because it just, like, what is egregious about it? We talked about the MCU guys, like, maybe, he's posting this content, and some people have said, like, that's why he lost the credits, or he said that. And it's possible there's nothing egregious about the content, but maybe it's egregious use of their copyright. You know what I mean? Like the fact that egregious can be used so many different ways, and then like there's always this implied nature that it's probably sexual misconduct, and that's been being said too, but not by any official channels. So it just feels like either side could be like poisoning the well with falsehoods or whatever, and I just hate the not knowing, and I don't like to come down on either side, because until more comes out and more is clear, it's just hard. Hate these kinds of stories.
What an unreasonable take. How dare you?
We'll just have to give this one time. I'd say that internal investigation, it'll...
Remember back when it happened, I said there is more to this story, you guys.
Yes,
Just give it time.
you did.
This time next year, we'll know a lot more than we do now, I'm sure, about this situation.